What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Wait What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 158. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You join the chat, join on the conversation, and all the fun live on that day. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. It drops over on YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, whether it's leaving a review, writing a comment, sharing it with the people you know and love. It may seem small, but it does help us out and help us grow. So anything you could do, we would be greatly appreciative of that. So today, what are we going to be talking about? Well, it's a shorter topic, or not a shorter topic, a shorter podcast than last week, which it seems like you guys enjoyed that episode, so thank you very much for checking that out. Today, we're going to be talking, at least to start, about some fun drama. And fun is maybe not the word I would use for the shitstorm that is happening, at least right now. And maybe I'm being over dramatic. That'll probably mean most of this podcast. So, if you don't know what's going on with WWE, let me lay it out for you. So, recent events, Vince McMahon has decided to come back to WWE, and rumors are swirling around that he is going to sell the company, and we'll go from there. So, the reason this is such a, I guess, controversial or like just dramatic, energy-fueled discussion, at least from me, is just because of the events that have transpired with Vince himself and the WWE in the past 6 months. We've talked about wrestling a whole bunch, obviously, here on this show, whether it was with guests on our own, WWE, different companies, etc., etc. And you guys should know, big wrestling fan. So WWE's always been my bread and butter, as it is with a lot of people. At least that's, where you kind of get your start, and then you can kind of dive into the different companies and branches if you so care to. And it's been an interesting 6 months to see where we're ending now, and it was kind of like this bag of emotions, like, oh, that's bad, a lot of excitement, and now we're back into this turmoil and negative feelings mode, or at least scared, I guess maybe be the right term, of what could happen, will happen, etc. So, let's talk about the Vince stuff to start. So like I said, this is kind of what's been going on in the past 6 months. Now, granted, I may miss some pieces. I'm going to try and go as chronological, is that even a word? Chronological, Jesus. As I can, but, everything, take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of better news outlets, media outlets, journalists that have covered this stuff. So if I do miss something or forget something, I do apologize. I'll try and summarize it the best I can and kind of go through what has happened with our friend Vince here. So, about 6 months ago, around SummerSlam time, so I want to say July, August, an article got posted about Vince and some allegations he was facing, some misconduct that he had with a former employee, and some not good stuff that he was forcing or having them do sexually, between the parties, whatever. So this party came forward, said that was happening, the allegations, and Vince retired, aka just kind of scooted off to the side because of all this stuff. And obviously, not good that was going on, and a big yikes. So he gets kicked out and retires from that. So, we hope everything obviously goes in the best route there. If this situation is true, obviously we want the victims to, come forward and be safe, and the bad people not to do that again. And we want to get it all squared away, right? So there's evidence about that where some money was missing from WWE funds in terms of all the charts and all that jazz. So he had paid off people using company money, whatever. So we got that. So he's exited. Company-wise, big changes. Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, and another guy, Nick Khan, co-CEOs. So they're running it together. And Triple H is put in charge of all creative. Now, as a wrestling fan, great. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of Stephanie, but it seems like a lot of the employees and people who work with her love her, and she's a great person. So, like, as a person, she's fantastic. Her character was always a piece of crap, which is obviously what we see, but that's kind of the point of a bad guy. So anyways, so that was a good step. Nick Khan, I don't know much about. We kind of blamed him for a lot of the releases. No real evidence towards that he caused that. But anyways, that was fine. The big victory was Triple H being in charge of creative. We had seen the success he had in NXT in the Black and Gold brand from his, I guess, not acquisition of it, but when he started really heading it, 2015 era, up until close to the pandemic when he had to step away due to health reasons, and then eventually him losing that control and Vince kind of taking it over after the failed Wednesday Night War with AEW and NXT transferring over to Tuesday TV. So we were excited for that as fans, just because a lot of us fell in love with the Black and Gold brand. It was that cool alternative to mainstream WWE with the PG era and just like different storytelling, and obviously all the indie talents that were getting more of this bigger stage to work on and the work rate and the matches, etc., etc. So we get that. So now he's in charge of everything. He seems to mainly be focused on the main roster stuff, so your Raw SmackDowns, and then HBK Shawn Michaels seems to have taken over the NXT branch and taken what Hunter did in the past, what Vince attempted to do with 2.0 of this whole developmental, not that NXT wasn't developmental, but like a real training facility, I guess you could say, or at least a more of a learning, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It was a lot of talent that had never wrestled before, and they were just bringing in athletes. So we kind of took both of these and melded them into something that works, I think, very, very well right now in terms of what NXT is now, kind of this hybrid. And the main roster stuff, while I know it hasn't clicked always, or like, you know, hasn't reached everybody's expectations, I think it's still been more exciting than the product was in the past, and more interesting as some talents were brought back, some storylines are kind of being built on. You know, there's certainly hit or misses, but it felt like a step in the right direction that with time, this would become something better and more beneficial than, say, the days of old. And not that, you know, I can be a hypocrite here and say, oh, everything WWE did sucked when Vince was in control. No, there were certainly a lot of things that were maybe not the best decisions, or things that, you know, didn't connect or resonate at all times. But there was a lot of good stuff that had happened while he was in charge. It just, at points, it felt stale. So with this whole change of creative and Triple H being in charge, and it seeming like more of a collaborative process, things were interesting, things were exciting. And this kind of fueled that fire of interest in wrestling a lot more than it kind of had felt recently. Like AEW is another example of that. Once that started kicking in and they got their footing, like that was another thing that kind of added to the fire of like, yes, this is something I want to watch, participate in, you know, consume time and energy into absorbing that content. And with this change, that felt like more of that, which is good, which is, you know, you want it to be exciting. Once it starts getting stale, feeling the same, it's like, why am I even watching this? Why am I putting my time into this when I don't feel rewarded as a viewer? Not because everything I want is coming true, but is the content they are producing engaging enough with me that I feel like I want to return and come back and, you know, keep that investment going, right? And that could go for any product, whether it's a show, a movie, whatever it is. If, you know, you put that time in there, you want that story, that entertainment, whatever it is, to have some sort of return for you. So with this, it felt like a step in the right direction. So anyways, this happens around July or August. So we get about 6 months or so of the new regime. This leads to, like I said, a lot of positive changes, at least in my opinion. We got some talents that were coming back who were released, maybe unfairly, which, most releases are very sudden, at least in the WWE terms. A lot of people that didn't feel like they got a chance were coming back. So cool to see that. A lot of people I was particularly selfishly interested in kind of backing. So, Karrion Kross, Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, it seems like Sanity's coming back and some other talents. Cool to see that. Cool to see that change. Like I said, cool to see the NXT kind of melded the black and gold brand and the 2.0 stuff, and they seem to be heading in the right direction, or at least a more engaging direction that I didn't feel with the 2.0 stuff, and seeing that talent kind of rise and do some good stuff down there. So we had this transition, and it seems like, once again, from a far outside source, so who knows, I could just be spewing out garbage right now, but it seems like it's a more positive atmosphere, workplace, place to be right now compared to what it was. A lot of talents have come out, whether they work with the company or not, especially those release talents when they're doing their interview loops afterwards, saying like they had positive things to say about Triple H, so it would seem like that's the direction they're going, of positive growth. So that's great. So we get to this past month, and boy howdy, how things have changed. I don't know exactly what caused the spark of energy, but it's all kind of happened in a rapid succession, or at least it feels like it, and maybe that's why it feels like more of a tense, stressful situation overall. So Vince retires, like we said. He's still got majority sharehold of the company, yada, 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 whatever. But he doesn't sit on the boards or anything like that. At one point, after things have kind of cleared, they haven't, as far as I know, gone to court, settled anything, etc. It's just more the pomp and circumstance, or the chatter kind of subsided, where he's like, okay, I want to come back, to WWE. I want to come back into the board. And the board unanimously said, no, we don't want that. That's not great. And I get it, obviously, regardless of, not regardless of the allegations, but you have something like that come out, and at least at this point, nothing's cleared, whatever it is. You wouldn't want to bring back in that kind of like, not darkness, but questioning attitude of like, oh, so-and-so did this thing, that's really bad. Oh, but he's still right there. That doesn't look good for your company. So I get that. So they unanimously say, no thanks, stay over there. He then threatens, as the majority shareholder, that with media deals coming up, etc., nothing's going to be decided without his involvement. And this is where we start getting to the ick. So he holds it over their heads, the company's heads, and being like, well, you're not going to be able to move forward from this without my approval, essentially. Somehow a revote happens, and unanimously they said, yep, you can come back in. So he's back, not as CEO, but chairman of the board. Okay. And to me, that just seems gross. Like we said, you wouldn't want this person in there because of, the negative connotation of what had potentially happened with him in the past. And as far as I know, no evidence hard clearing him anything. And I get, innocent until proven guilty. I get that. But with everything still up in the air and the question marks, it's like, do you risk that kind of negative press, or, do you let it you just nip it in the butt, cut it out, let it, rest on the side. I don't know if this was enough time frame of a cool down to get that past that point. And obviously, clearly, no, because I'm me, once again, lowly peon down here. It's still, not a great thing. And I've heard that from a lot of other people, sources, that they're like, no, this is not great. So anyways, he also manipulates to get back, which doesn't seem like a positive thing for any company trying to grow, that someone's holding the company hostage and not allowing it to grow, regardless of, I get he is a majority shareholder, but with it being public, that doesn't seem, like I said, something, a positive direction that could be had from that. It doesn't seem like something viable. So anyways, he gets back in, apparently fires some people on the board, replaces them with others who he had worked with in the past and also fired. And now it's all about a sale. Apparently he wants to sell it and feels he's a critical part into making it the most profitable it can be for a sale. So, okay. So we're all freaking out. Because, well, first he's back in. So it's just like a matter of dominoes. Like, when's the next thing going to fall into the next, into the next, into the next, and the next. And we kind of get our first evidence of that, or our first take of that, with shortly after he's back, Stephanie, who was co-CEO at the time, decides she's going to leave and resign fully from the company and, enjoy her time at the home. Now, granted, good for her. I know a while ago she kind of wanted to take a leave. I don't think it was a full, retire or resigning kind of thing. I think it was just more like, I'd like to take some time, spend some time with the family, relax, rest, because she's been working for quite a while. And I know her and Triple H have, I think, 2 younger kids. So I get that, nothing wrong with that. She decides to resign. So from her perspective and her health and her family, great. Do what you got to do. The timing of it, just very sucky. So he comes in, she's fully out, making the other guy full CEO. I don't know his relationship with Vince, if they're real tight, whatever. So she's out. So just with recency, it's like, oh, there's the domino. Now people are wondering and freaking out, oh, when's the next domino going to fall? And either Triple H is out completely as well, or does he lose creative power and we just go back to, what we previously had? So that also leads to the thought of, oh, what happens with all these talents that we brought back, or that were potentially, on the track to be brought back? Are they released again? Are those deals not solidified, or just kind of cut in the process, or not even granted moving forward, whatever it is? I don't know. So we're in this state of flux of like, oh boy, let's see what happens. Now, as of Friday, as of recording, apparently Triple H had a meeting with everybody, says he's still in charge of creative. Vince is just there for the sale, and we're going to go from there. Glad they had that discussion. If that's the case, fine. If that's really what he truly wants to do, wants to sell the company and then fully retire, okay, I could deal with that. I don't know how specifically that works with all the shareholders being a publicly traded company and then maybe going private, or how. I have no idea how that works. That is leagues and leagues above my knowledge bracket or whatever. But if that's his intention, fine. Now we get to the interesting stuff. Obviously, this could all just be, internet speculation, panicking, drama, whatever. Then we start hearing about all the potential salespeople that they could sell to. Everybody's listing off networks, Disney, Fox. Well, I guess Disney, Fox is one thing. Comcast, yada, yada, yada. The cons were thrown in there. So like AEW folk buying or being interested. And then the biggest red flag was Saudi Arabia. Some kind of independent, not firm, but collection fund. I don't know. Whoever controls or bought that soccer team, U.S. Emirates? No, I could be wrong with that. They bought a soccer team not too long ago. And apparently they would already have the deal or have struck the deal or whatever. And everybody's freaking out because of that. And, once again, not to be dramatic, but if there is, a lot of people have asked, because obviously we've voiced our frustrations here with how things have run or ideas that didn't go right by our standards. Like, what would be the final straw for you in WWE? What would make you stop watching? And I think that's the one. I think if they sold to Saudi Arabia, that would be like, all right, yep, I'm done. Chalk it up. It's been a fun ride. That is frightening just because obviously, if they're honest in what they're trying to change for themselves, great. We want to be optimistic here. But their track record, they have a long ways to go in terms of equality and women's rights, LGBTQ rights. There's a lot of progress that needs to be made. And if they're not sincere with, I don't know what their growth in those areas are, but if they're not willing to progress in those areas and move forward towards a more positive and inclusive light, and they buy WWE, that's a big step backwards in terms of a lot of things. And I would fear for a lot of the talents that are involved in the company and the employees themselves, obviously, as well. Just like big yikes. So since everybody freaked out about that, reports have come out saying it's not the case. There is no deal, but nothing is set in stone now. And now we're in this big limbo area of like, they want to sell. Who are they going to sell to? What's going on? Now, let's get our thinking caps on and let's talk about what I would prefer here. Like I said, if Vince wants to sell, and that seems to be the case, and that's just all he wants to do, and then he can go off into the sunset and do his thing, fine, I get it. Would I have preferred, the more linear progression a lot of us thought it was going to go to the kids, etc.? Yes, but whatever. If he's just there for the sale, fine. Who do I want to buy this thing? I really don't know. My biggest concern, let's list my 3 things. 1, Saudi Arabia. Don't do it. That I already talked about that. Nope, no thank you. AEW, we talked about Tony Khan, allegedly. This could also just be scuttlebutt for people to get likes and clicks on articles, all that jazz. Let's say Khan is interested and buys it. I think that is an awful move because it's not a monopoly again, but we're back in the situation that we were in before AEW came about. AEW's been great. AEW has brought a lot of energy and excitement around wrestling again, right? However, for all the things that AEW does right and the excitement it brings and all that jazz, there is a lot that probably isn't the best, like how they use talent from time to time, how their relationships backstage are, and seems like they have a lot of drama. Look at all AEW Brawl Out. All out Brawl Out. Look at all that jazz. Look at all the other drama that's come out of people not getting along. Tony already owns Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is already on a rough spot of launch point. Granted, WWE's a way bigger market, or at least name value, than a Ring of Honor, so I don't think TV deals would be that more difficult to acquire, or renew, or whatever it is. But he's got already 2 companies that he's trying to run. He can't even figure that out right now. Granted, I'm sure he's working on it. And that's going to pull him in another direction. The man has AEW, Ring of Honor, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Congrats on your comeback victory the other day. Some soccer league, I don't know. The man doesn't sleep, apparently. And, how is he going to split more attention up and work on this thing? I have no idea. So I don't think that's a great move. in terms of wrestling. Just because, well, that's a whole nother talent pool, and both WWE and AEW rosters, you can have the argument, are overabundant or just have too many talent to go around, or, to kind of manage all that shit. Now, picture that and double it. Like, oof. Granted, yes, I understand you have now twice as many television areas to put the talent, but still, big oof. Just kind of frightening in terms of management, and once again taking that step backwards of monopoly instead of where we were going with more competition. And granted, indies have always been around, whether it was your smaller stuff like your PWG or your GCW, but now your medium stuff like Impact is still sticking around. Obviously, New Japan is a beast you're never going to touch, as it's a whole different audience, but like the smaller promotions have been around, but it was nice to kind of have more of a gradual scale of size where, obviously WWE is still the tip top. You had this AEW where it's this middle to higher, this Impact where it was here, and then you have, your wide array of companies that are gaining momentum themselves, especially with the era of social media and everybody sharing and things like that. But to limit that again by joining these two, I don't think would be a step in the right direction. So that's my second personal, don't do that. My third fear, okay, we sell, hypothetically, I don't know, any network. You can name anybody. Fuck it. Disney buys them. Mickey Mouse is going to lay the smack down on everybody. Whoever buys them. My fear is just that they're going to take their people, which I get. They're a company. They take their people and they just replace everybody in terms of not the wrestlers themselves, because, they're not going to have that abundantly, but creative, whatever, production, all that jazz. Take these people who don't know, don't have the experience, throw them over here and just be like, okay, we're going to do this thing now. That's a big fear. We saw it with early stages of WCW, their, whole mix up of who's in charge, what's going on, direction, yada, 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 until we got to, Bischoff and obviously the success that he had. Once we kind of got to the Russo stuff and then Bischoff a little bit out of control, obviously that kind of affected WCW's future. But for a while, obviously WCW was in the right hands, blew up, NWO, all that stuff. A little rough in the early stages. And I don't want that to happen here where it just blows up in everybody's faces. And obviously all those people lose their jobs, whether it's production, wrestlers, whoever. Granted, it could take a lot of time to get to that point, but that's just a fear from my perspective. I'm like, oof, that's not great. My ideal situation, Vince is gone, but, doesn't seem like we're getting that. Sale goes through, everything's peaches and creams, and it's just, hey, you do this well. Do it. And by you do this well, I want Triple H in charge. Like I said, it seems like this past 6 months when he was in charge, at least creatively, and then, the new management, it seemed like things were, from a workplace standpoint, granted, once again, I'm not involved in that directly. I'm not talking to anybody directly, so this could all just be a million miles away, me looking at a dot and being like, oh yeah, that looks good. It sounded like things were going in the right direction there. From a fan perspective, things were more exciting. The Royal Rumble's coming up. This probably was one of the Royal Rumble most excited I've been for a Royal Rumble in a few years. Obviously, it's always fun, but this was one just exponentially. The excitement was growing, and then obviously WrestleMania coming up, and they did their UK event, which was a lot of fun, and they're going back there for Money in the Bank in, I think, July. Like, things seem to be going in the right direction from an excitement level from a fan perspective as well. I would love for that to continue and for someone to recognize that and be like, hey, we are just now, it's just under our umbrella. Now do that, what you're doing, and bring it to the next level that you can, kind of thing. That would just be my hopes and dreams for that. Now, if the other shoe falls, if the other domino falls, and let's say Triple H is out. Oh, okay, well, first off, a little bit of a more... the sirens are going off, and like red flag, red flag, red flag. If you want to get hypothetical, do Triple H and Stephanie then buy the company? I don't think they have that much money, but who knows? Or do they start their own thing? That could be something. That would be interesting. But now we're getting to the real hypotheticals, and it's hard to even not talk about it, but even think of what the rational hell what could happen. Who knows? That is always a possibility that they could do that. There's always rumors swirling around that Triple H was going to buy Ring of Honor when they were going for sale. NWA right now tries to do stuff, and there's a lot of shit right now with Nick Aldis taking off and Tyrus being the champ with his controversial stuff. I don't know. There's been talk of that. Maybe that would happen. Nothing serious, obviously, just all pie in the sky stuff. Who knows? The main thing here is we just want things to head in a positive direction from a company standpoint, a worker standpoint, everything. We just want things to be good, and it seemed like with the change at the top, regardless of how it may have happened, that seemed to be the way that they were headed, and that was good. Definitely good. Now, we do have one more final, step to the puzzle, at least right now, or piece to the puzzle. So Vince is back, and he's looking to sell. Remember that icky part I told you about, how he's holding it hostage, and that didn't feel right to me? Allegedly, now some other shareholders, stockholders, whatever you'd like to call them, are now suing Vince because of his actions and trying to, I guess you could say, be malicious against the company. And in my opinion, good on them. Because to me, that's not right. And, once again, I get it. Major shareholder, you want to say you own the company or whatever it is, or you have the most say, you got the biggest dick in the room, however you want to phrase this. I get it from that perspective. I own 54%, whatever it is. I should have the most say. However, outside looking in, I don't understand how you can expect your company to move in a positive direction after something like that. How does that not put a sour taste in other shareholders' mouth, your employees, your coworkers, everything? It kind of seems like a scumbag move, So we'll have to see where this goes. I don't know. There's been rumors of other shareholders also joining in on this. I don't know the success rate of this. We all know that rich white guys always get punished for the things they do. No, that doesn't happen. So, I don't know. It's a weird, I guess it's just a wait and see moment, as with everything, I guess. All the stories are growing and ever changing, but it's just I don't, that's not something you do or something positive. I understand you're in a shitty situation, but guess what? You kind of put yourself in that shitty situation. So that's on you, brother. I don't know. It's all very icky. From a fan perspective, like I said, how Vince has run this company, or at least the entertainment he has provided, yes, we have enjoyed the ride we've been on. There's been a lot of ups. There's been a lot of downs. Don't get me wrong. From that perspective and a booking perspective, I respect his history and what he's done for WWE since WWF and, WWF, from his dad and all that jazz. Fine. Good. As a person, no, we're done. We're good. I wouldn't. No, go away. We're just gonna have to see how things play out. It seemed like a lot of things was coming out. Rapid fire news stuff. Sale wise, it looks like they want to do it within 6 to 9 months. I understand that could be a whole process, and like I said, I don't know how that works out from a publicly traded company to a private company, if that is the way it goes, or however. I don't know that process. I have no idea. I assume that's a whole shit ton of paperwork that somebody will have to do, but that's not something you're just going to be like, okay, I want to sell. Next day, bam, it's done. There's got to be some process that has to go through, if and when that is going to go through. So we'll have to see how things go from here. Heading into the Rumble, heading into WrestleMania, heading into anything past this point. How does creative change? If it does change, how does it move, progress, anything? We'll have to see. Yeah, Rainbow in chat. I feel like Vince can't get what he wants. He would destroy the company, but I don't know wrestling. Exactly. And it's, from a logical standpoint, I agree. 100%. Like, I don't see how him threatening his own company, or where he has the shares in, how that can lead to anything positive of like, yeah, this is someone I want in a position of power, or something I want to invest in, or like all this negative press. And I guess you could say negative press is good press because you're being talked about. Who knows? I don't see how this positively helps anything or grows anything, but what do I know? Once again, it's a situation of like, oh, all these people do bad stuff and nothing happens to them. Who fucking knows where we go from here, how this happens, or what does happen to him or anybody else. We have seen other people who were tied to him when the initial allegations happened. They got punished. They lost jobs. They kind of were the, what do you call it? The fall guy, I guess you could say. And that's a small victory, but obviously, you can chip away at the village, but if the castle's still there, that's, that's probably a bad analogy. I don't know. It's rough. So we'll have to see. We'll have to take it day by day, see where this goes and progresses, and hopefully not have panic attacks over it, or at least from my perspective. But yeah, just sucks. Very shitty situation from a fan perspective, and I just really hope that everybody directly involved is okay. My biggest concern is with the employees and the talent. Like, how do they feel mentally, especially talents that had just come back, or people in the back who were brought in, or even people, once again, that were talking about showing up soon, because it seemed like Vince being gone was a very big draw in from a talent perspective. Hello. Of coming back. It's like, do you just instantly fear for your job again? Because you obviously got released once under main man. What's going to change it now? Obviously their work ethic hopefully, backs up what they can do and then proves to them, but it's hard to say. Seems like a lot of companies try and trim the fat before they sell for reasons, once again, I don't know. I'm not a business major. Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up topic 1 and all the shit that's going on over there. So let's talk about topic 2. WWE on a better light. Let's talk about WWE2K23. So for those of you guys who've been listening to the podcast for at least a little while, I am a pretty big fan of the WWE games and the 2K games and franchise that they've been releasing over these past, is it 10 years at this point? Maybe a little shorter. And 2K22 was a big step in the right direction from the problems in 19, especially 20 with bugs and all that jazz. They took the year off from development, released 22, and it was a really good game overall, with a lot of good changes and additions to it. So I kind of wanted to talk about 23. What am I kind of hoping that is changed leading into 23. Now that we have some rumors swirling around that around Rumble time they're going to have an announcement, maybe some gameplay, and going forward seeing what they add to this year's game. So first off, I guess the big question or big elephant in the room is, when are they releasing this thing? So with previous releases, back when they were on their yearly development cycle before they took the break with 21 not releasing that, so that break after 20, they would usually announce things or start showing things around SummerSlam time, so July, August time period, and then they would release the game around October, November, so that holiday season. We haven't heard anything so far about this upcoming year's release, so they're going to, if rumors are true, January 28th, they would announce, reveal, etc. Now the question is, are they going to maintain the release schedule that they set up last year in springtime, so March, April, around WrestleMania, or are they going to go back to the October timeframe, November timeframe, and the holidays? From a time period of announce to release, obviously the timing still works out, that would kind of work out where it would be that spring schedule, and I think that works, because once again, it's around Mania. A lot of people are talking about wrestling, obviously, during WrestleMania season, so releasing a game around that point I think would be perfect, but it's really up in the air, because obviously we're only going off of 1 year of 22 with the skipping of a year, and then releasing in spring. We'll have to see if they release in spring or if they release in October. And I think, obviously, the event or release, whatever you want to call it, the press event on the 28th is really going to be our indicator. If it is simply, I don't know, a splash screen of whoever is on the cover this year, we know there's still a lot of development time that needs to be put into this game, and that would probably lead to a later date of the October-November period. If the rumors are true where it's gameplay and maybe a little bit more of like story mode reveal, etc., that shines at least a better light in terms of, oh, okay, this thing isn't, I guess, as far back as we may have thought and is on the right track towards release in the springtime. So we'll have to see how that event goes, if that event is even real and happening. I hope it is, because I'm very excited to see what them as a company, as 2K, decides to adapt add to this title and keep it going in the positive direction that 22 set us up at. Now, on that note, we're back to the year-to-year schedule of releases. From a game development standpoint, probably can be a little bit rough, especially with all the changes that they need to make roster-wise. You know, WWE has an influx of talent, whether it's the Raw roster, SmackDown roster, NXT roster, whatever. There's a shit ton of people that contractually, I guess, if they figured that out, they need to include in this game. That's a lot of entrances to do, a lot of character models to do, animations to do, movesets, whatever it is. It's a big undertaking. From year to year, for any sports release title, you know, it's a task, and sometimes it can be seen that phoning it in sounds bad, but there are some releases that are better than others. I'll compare it to another 2K series. NBA 2K, in my personal opinion, has kind of fallen into this like samey, mundane game year to year, and it's led to me taking breaks, you know, 5+ years in the past of like, nah, it doesn't, nothing feels special. It feels like more of the same, which I get it. How are you going to change a basketball game all that much or a wrestling game all that much? And I think the thing that, you know, just really helps drive that forward is the love and care. Not to say that developers aren't putting everything they have into this game, because I know developers work very, very hard for their titles, but sometimes it just doesn't have that hook in you that you feel it should. And 22, WWE 22, when it came back, I feel had a lot of things that drew us in as players to make it interesting. Granted, it could have been the year gap and break, which I understand, you know, distance makes the heart grow fonder, or whatever that saying is. It could have just been that, but I also feel like 22 added a lot of things that were good and positive from a player perspective. So we got, more showcase mode, which seems to be their bread and butter for at least these historical matches and telling an individual wrestler's story in these games. We had the Rey Mysterio one this year. It was fine. It was okay. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was fun to do. You had your return of universe mode, which I know a lot of people are into, so kind of creating matchups that you want to, mixing, matching, creating those shows, and then playing out stories that the way you want to. They added a different perspective in that mode where you could assume the role of a superstar. So it kind of gives you kind of an arcade mode of like, okay, I'm going to play as Shotzi Blackheart. What kind of story am I going to run into playing as her or playing as these other wrestlers? And what rivalries am I going to go to? What challenges, obstacles do I need to kind of overcome to get to the title, whatever it may be? So that was a cool alternative that I did enjoy a little bit. You had the return of their my superstar, or whatever they decided to call it, the Create a Wrestler story, which this year's I thought much more interesting than past years. Granted, I only played maybe a couple hours and never made it to the main roster or anything, but it was interesting dealing with the backstage stuff. How does that role-playing game aspect, how does your character communicate with other superstars? Are you going to be a good guy? Are you going to be a bad guy? What decisions are you going to make? How are your matches going to go? What path are you going to take? Are you going to go to NXT? Are you just going to go to the main roster? What titles are you going to chase after? It was an interesting formula that they kind of created for this year as compared to past, where I've talked about it before. I remember doing one of their Create a Superstar, Create a Wrestler modes where it was similar in ways, but it was very focused on rivalries, and that was a big thing they added, but it didn't seem like the rivalries mattered. I remember fighting, at the time, Colin Cassidy for 6 weeks in a row. Same fucking single match over and over and over again for those 6 weeks when I'm not even in a rivalry with him. Never got any cutscenes or anything interesting, or at least somewhat exciting about the rivalry I was building up to in the next month's pay-per-view, but I had to fight this giant asshole week in and week out. And it just wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting. And at least in this year's iteration, while of course you're going to run into some repeat scenarios where you're fighting similar guys from their roster, whatever it is, but the stories that they were telling in between the matches and the progression there felt a whole lot more interesting and engaging from a player perspective. So they added that. They added a brand new mode, which they kind of adopted from, your NBA 2K, your FIFA Ultimate. Well, I guess FIFA Ultimate Team is the mode. The FIFA games, I don't know if Madden has one, but it's like card collector type mode. And I know this was very divisive amongst WWE2K fans. A lot of people, some people loved it, some people hated it. And I get criticisms from both sides, or at least the perspectives from both sides. I thought it was a lot of fun because in playing NBA 2K, that was the mode I typically gravitated towards, was the My Team. Collecting cards for the superstars, doing your matches, trying to do certain objectives, do a move a certain amount of times, or, have this kind of star ranking in the match, whatever it may be. It was something different that these titles haven't done before, so it made it exciting to try it out in this game universe. I think that was a positive. Even if it doesn't click with everybody, the variety is what counts here. What mode do you, the audience, connect with? Do you just want to jump into exhibition modes with your friends and just duke it out in there? Sure, go for it. Do you want something more serious where you have that creative side? You have universe mode. Do you have something that you want to create a wrestler and go through your own wrestling journey that you never got to IRL? Then you got the create a superstar thing. So even if the card collecting thing didn't resonate with everybody, I think it was a good addition, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they add to that in the future. A change that I hope they make, and I guess this will kind of skip ahead before I talk about the other new mode that they added, is anything that is unlocked in that card collector. I don't remember what it's called. I'm so sorry. Anything you unlock, superstar attires, different looks, like completely different looks from the current day of the superstars, needs to be unlocked in exhibition mode. Just your general play. For some reason, they decided to lock these attires in that mode. So what I mean is, with the different cards, they were very good at, updating it constantly, where there were different card packs. So you had, certain pay-per-views that they would call back to, or NXT talents from like when they started NXT compared to where they are now. So you got old attires. Those were locked to that game mode. So Seth Rollins in his white attire from SummerSlam, locked in that mode. Rhea Ripley from her NXT days and NXT UK days, locked in that mode. Old New Day and their, pink attire from when they won the tag titles at some point, locked in that mode. Stupid. Very dumb. Why not include that as an unlockable that you're still working towards, whatever? Make it so a player has something to chase after and then is rewarded by using it wherever, whenever they want. That was stupid. That would have been great. So that's a big change that needs to happen, specifically in that mode there, is having that freedom as a player to use what I've earned in that anywhere. And then you got your last addition to this year's mode, and it's more of a return to form, but it's 2K's first crack at it, and it's the time I put the most effort and time into, is the GM mode. I fell in love with 2K's GM mode. Granted, it started off a little bit rough, but it just was a great time and a lot of fun to do. They took a lot of what Ukes and THQ did back in the day with the original releases, took that, implemented it here, and then kind of created a little bit more of their own addition to it with the card system. So stamina cards, contract cards, getting your superstars to push them to a full contract instead of a part-time, or obviously your more aggressive offensive cards against your opposing player, whether it's a CPU or a real person. All good stuff. Like I said, started off a little bit rough. You only had the 3 matches you could do per week. There were no tag titles. There was no mid-card title. You only had the top title for the men's and the women's roster. And then it was there. Now, granted, after the first update, they did add more. So you had, instead of 3 matches per week and then 4 on the pay-per-view, you now got 4 per week and 5 on the pay-per-view, with the addition of an additional promo segment, whether you wanted to change somebody from heel to face, have them do a charity event, whatever it might have been. A step in the right direction, and they added the tag team titles, men's tag titles, women's tag titles. Great. This allows for you, obviously, to use your roster a little bit more openly, freely, and have the belts used as a story plot point if you wanted to. Obviously, changes they could make to this mode, adding the mid-card titles would be nice. Just another element you could do, and have into storytelling in your own head or planning or whatever it is. And it's funny to say, but more roster space or more of a money cap would be nice. Sometimes you run into it where you're really struggling for superstars, like especially early on in the game, filling all these slots. And then there's other times where you do have too many and you're trying to figure it out and people are losing popularity, whatever it is. And then the whole stamina game is an issue of like, this guy's really tired, I have nobody to sub in. That can be rough. So there's some tweaks and things like that they definitely could make in this mode to make it better. And I think they will. This was their first attempt at GM mode. And I think for a start, this was great. The best feature I think they added into 22 for their GM mode was the custom rosters. And granted, you could do this in the old games, pretty sure. But the freedom of the creative suite to obviously create your wrestlers, create their movesets, And in GM mode, when you don't simulate, just put in a picture for like their icon. You can fantasy book the shit out of this GM mode. For example, I'm putting in people who are currently in WWE who might have gotten released that didn't make it into the game. New signees that weren't even around when the game was released, like 2.0 people. Bringing them into the fold keeps it fresh in GM mode. If you really wanted to put in the work and effort, you could make an AEW roster and do an AEW GM mode. Same with Impact, same with New Japan, whatever you did. That freedom and flexibility just adds layers into the fun that you can have in this mode and allows for, you really to get your money's worth out of this and come back to the game. It's not something that you're going to play for only that first launch month and then the interest dies. You're not there. This was something that allowed you to come back. Showcase mode, on the other hand, you're probably only going to run through that once. You're not going to run through that multiple times. So, good move there. Interested to see what they add from there. One last thing, I guess, on that first update, like I talked about the GM mode, the stuff they added. They did right their wrongs. That's, my words. And in the Create a Superstar, there were things available in there that were once again locked in that mode. So, for example, Dominik Dijakovic, his character model, his entrance, his animation were in that mode, but current day's character was T-Bar, and he was available in the exhibition mode. So you could see Dijak in that mode, and it was great, it was cool, but you couldn't get it anywhere else. They did eventually, after that first update, allow for characters like Dijakovic, I think King Booker, King Corbin, some other ones. They did add them and make them available everywhere else, which was very much appreciated. And that was something they haven't done in past releases, where obviously they'd update and they add DLC, but it didn't seem like they were listening to the audience and taking these things into perspective and adding free content to their already released game. And I was hoping, for that with the card mode that they would listen and have that become available, but unfortunately did not. Hopefully in 23, as we talked about, they will allow for that. So what are some other changes I'd like to see in 23 that maybe we didn't get in 22 or other releases? I think I kind of alluded to it, but updates. More consistent updates. They did a great job of updating that first update being huge, and I believe they had maybe one more after that where like they added the NXT 2.0 arena for free. That was very nice of them. But another thing they also did, was the card mode. They added constantly new packs to that mode. That keeps that fresh, keeps that interesting. I think by them adding more consistent updates like this and showing that it's not a games of service, but showing that at least they still care and want that user experience to be positive. After the first release and first patch or whatever, having, things constantly worked on would be nice. Granted, I get it. With a year-to-year release cycle, you kind of have to find a point of like, we need to work on the next game. We can't keep going with this one. And I think there's other teams and games that do this constantly, where there's updates to fix certain things or roster changes. Once again, I'll circle to the NBA thing because it's a more prominent example in my head. That game makes constant updates. I don't know if the WWE game team is smaller, so they can't allocate those resources to it. Maybe that's the case, but if they're there, it would be nice. Even if it's just in the span of the DLC release schedule. So usually with the release schedule, you get DLC 4 packs over the next 4 months. So like even having half the year, give or take, to kind of have some kind of support system with these updates or changes or free additives would be something that's nice. Once again, I get they want to put the resources into the following game, but you kind of want to keep the audience on good favor. I don't know if that's the right terminology. Good faith leading into your next year, because obviously you want them to buy the next year. If your game's crap now, it's not really going to help them later on when they decide to put their $60, $70 into your next title. So there's that. I'd like to see them put a little bit more TLC with the updates there. We talked about the card mode. They absolutely need to do that. If you unlock something in there, it's a very cool asset. Someone put a lot of work into that. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's very simple to do a palette swap of colors at least. But why not? Why not reward the player for working towards this, saving resources, maybe even using real-world money to get these packs, to get these other superstars, to then just be like, nope, you can't use them anywhere. Let your players use the things they earned, worked for, maybe bought anywhere. Why not? I think their creative online system, it's gotten better over the years. I think that still needs a little bit of work. Searching with certain hashtags is fine, but sometimes isn't the most responsive, or at least their organization. Like, you had like a most recent, you had a top downloaded and a top rated. I think you can merge top downloaded and top rated, really, because wouldn't that be one and the same? The rated, I guess the player has to give it the thumbs up or whatever. Some people definitely don't. I try my best to do that whenever I'm downloading something, but sometimes you just forget because you got a list of things that you want to try and get. Just try and make that navigation a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure how they would do that. I think the hashtag system is probably the easiest way, or the best way to at least have a start towards it. But that's something I feel that needs to happen. Showcase mode. Showcase mode is good, but as I talked about earlier, it's pretty much guaranteed to be a one and done. I don't know how you can make it so it's worth a replay. I think it might just be worth making that mode a little bit longer. So this past year's they did Rey Mysterio, which is great. They had like 10 matches or so, and you had a whole bunch of unlockables you could do, and eventually you get Dominic Mysterio out of it. Great. I think something they could do is either multiple superstars, do that, or if you can, do a longer paths with somebody. Still give players the option to maybe hop and skip around to any match they want to, because, granted, maybe people don't connect with the legends or superstars of the past, and they don't really care about unlocking XYZ person, but they really care about this new current guy or attire or arena or whatever. Let them work towards that. Give the players the freedom of that. But yeah, it would be cool to see more retro superstars. The legends have never been something I've been, like, oh, I want to play as X or play as Y or Z legend. It's just like, oh, they're in the game. It just adds to it. So I know that's a whole licensing thing, and you got to get approval or more royalties paid out. If they're able to do that, that would be really cool to see more legend characters, especially in, like, I don't know, just for example, Attitude Era type attires, not just the same character model where, like, okay, I'm going to use Kurt Angle as an example. A Kurt Angle that looks like current day Kurt Angle, and a Kurt Angle that looks like, when he first showed up, or at least the Attitude Era. They should look like themselves, and it shouldn't just be the current day with hair and the palette swap of the attire. It should look at least a little bit different. I get it's more work to do, all that jazz. That would be something that's neat. And that's not something you need to recreate every year. That's an asset that I feel can be reused. It's not going to be the end of the world, especially with any game like this where the roster is huge. If it's a retro, quote unquote, character, I think the audience will be a little bit more forgiving if that character model looks the same, or if animations are the same for their entrance, whatever it might be. We're going to be a little bit more lenient because we have that option available to us. It just kind of adds depth to the game. So once again, I get it. It's a whole royalty thing, whatever, but that would be one way I think you could build on Showcase to make it at least, maybe not a little bit more replayable, once again, but maybe a little bit more worth it of an experience if you had either multiple superstars or you had a lengthier mode there with some more interesting unlockables. Years ago, they did like that WrestleMania. I don't remember if it was WrestleMania Legends, but it was some title where they had at least one match from each WrestleMania leading into 30. That would be really cool. That's another way you can get the Legends involved. It's an option. I don't know. The Creative Superstar is tough. Like I said, I think this year was a better one. I think the main thing with that is just make it compelling for what I am doing as the player. Have me engaged in different rivalries with superstars that kind of progress. Don't have it repeat too much where I'm fighting the same guy 20 times. That's fine. Let's talk about unlockables. So everybody, well, maybe not everybody, a lot of people like unlockables. We talked about it. Adds depth to the game, makes it more interesting, adds a whole nother layer of something to do or things to people to play as, matches to do, whatever it is. So unlockables, it's nice to have the option to have them. One of my biggest pet peeves, so you can get the season pass, right? Gets all the DLC for you and also allows you to unlock everything that the game has to offer. I'm all for that. Some people, once again, you have the time to play. You can put X amount of hours into it, and it's great. Other players, doesn't matter, maybe don't have that time. Maybe you can only play for 30 minutes because you have work or your family life or other obligations. You can't dedicate 5 hours a day to sitting at a console, PC, whatever it is, to play a certain title. Totally get that. Totally get that. Get the time you can and enjoy the time you have. So this accelerator allows you to unlock everybody. So if I'm person A and I have the time, maybe I want to work towards those things. But I still want the season pass because it's all the DLC bundled, right? On person B, you don't have the time to invest in it. You'd rather just, yep, I want everything. Here's everything available to me, and you enjoy your playground. Regardless of your situation, player A or player B, I think there should be an option with the accelerator to use it or not to use it. I think in the past, with 2K's releases, there was maybe only 1 year they gave you that option if you wanted to use it or not use it. Every other time, you buy the season pass with this accelerator and it instantly unlocks everything and gives you no choice. For me, once again, this could be just selfish. For me, that takes the fun out of it. Why am I playing this game then? I'm not working towards anything. And like, once again, I like it. I like the freedom of like, here's all your toys. Go play. Go nuts. Do your thing. But for me as a player, the reason I play, Hades, the reason I play God of War, the reason I play Call of Duty, whatever it may be, there's incentive and things to work towards. Whether I want the best gun in Call of Duty or this certain camo skin, or in Hades I want to unlock this certain weapon or use this ability, whatever it may be. It's incentive for me to put the time in to work on it and enjoy myself. With the accelerator just unlocking everything, takes that experience out of it, and it's like, what's hooking me, what's keeping me going for all this time? Granted, once again, this year definitely took a lot of time. I played it a lot, but I was playing GM mode. Rarely played the other modes, even exhibition and the regular matches. It was just the managing aspect that took my time. I don't know. It's a small thing to kind of nitpick, but that's something I think I would change for the better, or at least it would allow, once again, the freedom for players to enjoy the experience how they want to experience it. everybody always talks about fantasy matches, what matches you want in there. I get it from a technical standpoint. Some things can be certain limited, and especially with how the game tries to prevent itself, it's very not like super graphics intensive compared to other titles, but like they're trying to find this nice mix of this game looks pretty but is also fun. And sometimes if you go too far in the one direction, the other suffers greatly. And not to shit on the AEW game, but they know what they're looking for. They are going for a gameplay focused game, which is great, but graphically it may not stand up to par to 2K's, which is fine. That's, some people weigh things out more than others, totally a-okay, but from a business, 2K wants that nice kind of mesh of both worlds, where they want something that graphically looks really nice but is also really good play style, which I think they've gotten better and made that more user friendly as the years have gone on. Selfishly, I would love them to allow for more players to be on the screen at once, for example, i.e. a Royal Rumble for that ring to get crowded. But I get it from a technical aspect that may be something tough to do. We got better with it this year. We got 8. So, step in the right direction. If we can keep that going, great. If not, whatever. I do enjoy that they added multi-man tag team matches. So, 2v2v2v2. Maybe adding more game modes, at least to the multi-man teams, or bigger match, like more participant matches, maybe adding some freedom there would be nice. I don't know if they had any backstage stuff this time. And once again, this could be my lack of knowledge of not putting in time to the exhibition matches. But I don't know if they added that. That could be something. Yeah. I guess last but not... Well, no. Yeah, I got nothing else. I don't know. I thought I had another thing. I guess a small thing would be cool if you had more announcers, but I get that's a whole rigmarole of like recording and figuring out the time and scheduling. I get that. Same with ring announcers. Just add a little bit of variety, add some depth to that game, and might increase the livelihood of interesting things that would happen or engage the player's experience. But it is what it is. Well, looking forward to 23. Looking forward to seeing what maybe they talk about coming up on the 28th, if that does happen. And if it doesn't happen, when the fuck we're going to see this game. And hopefully it's just good. Hopefully it's just more of, we add to the experience, we take fan feedback, try and do what we can, and, add to it. I understand, once again, year to year that can be tough. We've seen that with numerous franchises where they can struggle or it feels the same, and sometimes taking a break is good. Obviously with 22, great stuff done there. The Assassin's Creed franchise taking a break. They did the whole open world thing with people loved. We'll just have to see. Time will tell. Hopefully they can keep headed in the right direction or the positive direction, make some good changes, some fun changes for the players, and keep them engaged as they go along. Well, everybody, this has been another episode of the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can join the podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can join the chat like Rainbow did today. Join on the fun and the chaos. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support us, whether it's leaving a comment or review, sharing it with someone you care about, who you think would enjoy the program. It may seem small, but it is very much appreciated. Helps the channel grow, helps the show get bigger, and just mean the world to us. And we're highly professional here. I don't know if I said at the beginning of the podcast this was 158, but we're racking up those numbers. So I appreciate you guys hanging out today for our lovely two-sided coin of topics today. Hope you guys had some fun. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.